Did you guys draw these little arrows on your page? Can I get everybody's attention up here, please? I know you're going to have to turn your head sideways now. Positive slopes go uphill like this, negative slopes go downhill like this. Can you please look, for those of you who actually graphed some lines, can you please check and make sure that you have a positive slope and a negative slope on this first one? Make sure you should have one line that's going uphill like this, that would be the positive slope. And you should have one line that's going downhill like this, that would be your negative slope. Can you check and see if you've got a line going in both directions for that first one? For the second one, they should both be negative slopes. Can you guys look at your graphs and make sure that you've got negative slopes for both of those? If you don't, that's okay. Just make a quick correction. You've got a pencil. If you need erasers, there's some in the drawer over there. If you didn't do the problems, then what we could do is look inside of our packet and see if we can find an example that shows some graphs and some equations. So we've got 3 examples here. This is on the 3rd or 4th page of your packet. We've got 3 examples here of some graphs and some equations. Let me see if we can find some more. Where's one where we actually made the graph ourselves? I'm looking at this one right here. Right here, we made this graph ourselves. This is what I need you to be doing when you run into something that you're not sure how to do. I need you to be using your resources and helping yourself. I'm going to go over this, but I can continue to go over this and you can continue to copy down notes. If at some point you don't do some of these problems on your own and correctly, that's going to make it really difficult for you to remember how to do it next Wednesday when we have our test. Okay. So I'm going to go over these. For those of you who did your graphing, check your answers. I did see several mistakes as I was walking around today. That's okay. It's okay to make mistakes on these. For those of you who weren't sure how to graph, it's super important that you pay attention to this. And then you'll probably want to put some notes into your packet so that you've got some good notes about how to do this in the future. All right, let's focus on this first one. When we're graphing a line, the first thing that I always look at is this piece here. This thing is the y-intercept. If you weren't sure how to do that problem, could you please label that -2 as the y-intercept? That's the first thing that I look at because that tells me where on my y-axis my first point is going to be. So find -2 on your y-axis and draw me a point there. After I've got that point, then I need to be looking at my slope. The slope is the thing that's attached to the x. This is my slope, and I notice it's negative, which means I'm going to be drawing a line that's going downhill from left to right. And I'm going to draw my little slope triangle on here and put some numbers on it. And then we will transfer that slope triangle onto our page. This is 1/3. Remember, that's change in y, so that's the up and down part. That's 1 over change in x. So my change in y is 1, my change in x is 3. That's what my slope is going to look like. And go ahead and label that slope. So put your pencil down at that first point that you drew and then count. Count 1 space down and 3 spaces over. 1 space down, 3 spaces over, draw me another point. And then repeat that. Count 1 space down, 3 spaces over, draw another point. And then keep going until we go off the edge of our graph. And then go back to your original point and back it up, go the opposite direction. Up 1/3. Up 1/3. Until you're off the edge of your graph. And then you can grab a ruler, or if you've got some artistic talent and you just want to freehand it, that's fine. We'll connect these up. We'll put some arrowheads at both ends because we know they're going to keep going forever and ever. Can you guys do a quick visual check on that line that I just drew? Is that a negative slope? If I were walking on this, if I were a person walking on this slope to the right, would I be going downhill? If I were going to the right, would I be going downhill? Okay, then I got my slope right. It should be negative. All right. Second one, let's do the same thing. Now, this one didn't have a number in front of the x. We can always put a 1 in front of an x, and we can always turn a whole number into a fraction by sticking a 1 underneath it. I want you to notice that this one has a y-intercept at positive 2. So please draw me a y-intercept at positive 2. Draw me a point at positive 2 on the y-axis. And this slope is 1 over 1. That means it's going to be going uphill like this. And my slope triangle is going to be on the top side of it like this. It's going to be going up 1 over 1. So put your pencil down at that y-intercept and count up 1 space over 1 space. Continue doing that until you run off the edge of your graph. And then reverse it and go in the opposite direction. And then go ahead and draw your line. All right, any questions on that first problem? They did ask us to do one other thing here. They asked us to find the intersection point. So let's go ahead and do that. Down here at the bottom, if you haven't done this already, please write the word intersection. And the intersection point is the point where the two lines cross each other. Circle that point on your graph. Circle the point where the two lines cross each other, and let's draw an arrow to the word intersection from that point. That's our intersection point. We're actually going to be using that in the second semester to do this thing called solving systems of equations. Let's practice writing the coordinates of that point, please. What would its x-coordinate be? What's the x-coordinate of this point? Where does it line up on the x-axis? Looks like negative 1, 2, 3. Negative 3. So negative 3 comma, what's the y-coordinate of that point? Where does that point line up on the y-axis? I'm seeing negative 1. So our intersection would be negative 3 comma negative 1. All right, I just want to do one last check before I move on, because we get lots of mistakes with this. And when I said I saw mistakes, it was mostly with positive and negative slopes. This first graph was a negative slope. When you look at this graph, do you see a person going downhill as they move from left to right? I do. Look at this second one. This should have been a positive slope. If I were a person walking to the right along this graph, would I be going in the positive direction? Would I be going uphill? Yes. Always, always, always go back and double check positive and negative slopes. That's where 95% of the mistakes get made with graphing lines. Okay, the next one's up to you. Okay, so I need everybody in the room to have this last problem done. Please make sure you're using pencil, because I'm going to come around and I'm going to check, and if it's not right, you're going to have to do it again. Okay, so we'll keep fixing it. I'll give you some hints. When you finished and everybody at your table has both of the warm-up problems complete and correct, I'm going to give the folks at your table it's called a review. It says mid-unit review. We're closer to the end of the unit than the middle of it, but that's fine. All right. So finish up that second problem. Follow the same steps that we just did a moment ago. Figure out your y-intercept. Draw a little slope triangle off to the side. Make sure it's going in the right direction. Please note that both of these have negative slopes. So when you draw your slope triangle, it should be going downhill from left to right. And then go ahead and draw your graphs. Find your point of intersection. Just let me know when you and your partners have finished that up, and I'll get you started on the mid-unit review today. All right. I'll be around to answer questions.